Hi guys, it's Sandy with Trinity Stamps, and guess what? It is the Trinity Stamps February release. This release is just amazing. It has got Easter eggs and peeps and bows and flowers. It even has some faith-based dies. Now, to celebrate the launch of this new release, Trinity Stamps is giving away a $25 shopping spree to their shop. If you want to enter, make sure you fill out the brief form that is linked below. The deadline to enter is February 26th, and the winners will be announced on the Trinity Stamps YouTube channel in a post, along with Instagram and the Facebook group on or around the 27th of February. The card I've created for this hop is featuring the new egg-shaped card die set along with the Happy Easter add-on. I did throw in a few peeps from the new Peep Trio Die Set. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use these two dies to create a shaker card. All right, let's get creating. I'm going to start off first with the egg-shaped card die set along with the Happy Easter egg add-on. I'm going to use the outside edge from the Happy Easter egg add-on, and then I'm going to use the largest of the egg dies from the egg-shaped card die set. What I'm doing here is I'm going to create an egg-shaped frame. So I'm taking those two egg shapes. I've got the back side of them facing up. I'm going to line those up so that the inside egg is equidistant, I guess, from the outside egg. I'll go ahead and use my mint tape to tape that in place on both the right and the left side. And then at the top and bottom, I will tape it with the mint tape at the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to flip that over very carefully. And I'm going to reinforce the mint tape at both spots. That gives it just a little bit more stability because I'm going to be going back and forth with this die set to cut out a number of different frames. Now that I have 8 frames cut out, I'm going to go ahead and glue those together. I use 110-pound cardstock when I make wells like this. I'm using the Happy Easter egg add-on die along with a piece of patterned paper. I believe it's cut at 6 by 6. I'm going to tape down that inside egg from the die set just so it doesn't move around once I get it over to my die cutting machine. And then I'm going to take that outside egg that comes with the set, and I'm going to center the inside egg within that outside egg, tape that down, and then I will run that through my die cutting machine. Now that I have that piece of pattern paper cut out, I am going to use my Trinity Stamps Pickup Stick tool, and I'm just going to make sure I poke out all those little spots in those letters just to have a nice clean design. The Happy Easter egg add-on will fit on an egg-shaped card that you could cut out with the egg-shaped card die set. However, this particular card, I wanted to add on some little embellishments at the bottom. Now this card would definitely fit on an A2 piece of paper. That still wasn't going to be big enough for me. So I've got my pattern paper cut out at 5.5 by 5.5. And then I used the largest egg from the egg-shaped card die set to cut out the background egg piece for the inside of my shaker. So I've already got it traced out where it's centered on my pattern paper. I've laid down my frame, and now I'm just gluing in that egg background, and then I will adhere the frame to the pattern paper. And the reason I do this is I just want to make sure that that background white paper isn't cupped up on the sides or anything, that it's fitting snugly or underneath that frame. I'm going to sprinkle my embellishments into the well now. This is my new favorite embellishment. It's called Dot Hooray Confetti, and I just love it because it is so colorful. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of green Glam chunky shreds. This is also one of the new embellishments that came out with this release. With my shaker pieces in the well, I'm going to take my little glue press and I'm going to go on the very outside as best as I can of that egg shape. I don't want to get any glue towards the inside because sometimes it's a little tricky to get that acetate to cover that well, and I don't want any of that glue squishing out and getting on the acetate because it will definitely show. I used the outside egg that came with the Happy Easter egg add-on to cut out my sheet of acetate. I'm going to go ahead and lay that on top of my egg, and we are all sealed up and ready to start the next step. Now I can apply that Happy Easter sentiment, that little egg piece that we cut out of the pattern paper, to the top of my acetate. Again, I am being very, very careful not to use a whole bunch of glue because if it leaks out or gets onto that acetate, it's going to show. It's really hard to clear off. I've never actually ever been able to get it to completely come off. So especially on the letters and in the thinner parts, I will put a little bit of glue and then kind of tamp that down with my finger just to get the bulk of that glue off. And then I will carefully place it on top of my acetate. Now, I didn't like the way that my Happy Easter sentiment lined up on my egg well that I cut out. So I went ahead and I cut out just another egg frame out of the same pattern paper, and I glued that on top, and that just kind of evened everything out. And you can't really tell that's what I did to fix that unless you were to look really, really close. I wanted to add a little bit of grass to the bottom of my egg to cover up those little shaker pieces. So I used the Outdoors Borders and Scene Builders Slimline die set to cut some grass from green cardstock. I'm going to take the egg that's on the outside of the Happy Easter add-on card, and I'm going to cut that grass out so that it falls nicely on the bottom of that egg. Now, I don't know about you, but I absolutely love peeps. So I'm going to cut some pink peeps using the new Peep Trio die set. And I'm going to cut the little ones from the Peep Show die set. To cut in the little eyes on the pink, the bigger pink peeps, I went ahead and put the little eye die on a piece of thin temporary tape and just used that to help me line up where I wanted to cut those dies out. In retrospect, I did not even have to cut out the dies or the little eyes because they got covered up by the other two peeps anyway. I always like to add a little bit of ink to the outside edges of my die cuts, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready to add a little bit of color to those edges. I am using the Clingy Craftmate reusable grip pad to do my ink blending. I absolutely love this pad. It is so easy to use, and it's super easy to clean with just a spritz of water and a flour sack towel to clean it off. So I'm going to hit the edges of this grass with a little bit of Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink, and then I'm going to move on to my little bunnies. For my little pink bunnies, I'm going to blend on some Kitsch Flamingo Distressed Oxide ink. And on my little lavender bunnies, I'm going to use Wilted Violet Distress Oxide ink. I got a wee bit carried away on my first little bunny, so I did wind up doing another one off camera, and I will just tuck that little first bunny on the inside of the card. It's not horrible, it just didn't match the other bunny very well. Next, I'm going to work on my yellow bunnies, and I had a little bit of mustard seed distress oxide ink already in my brushes, so I didn't need to add anything else to it. I just went around the edges of them. I also decided that I would add a little bit of Rustic Wilderness on the outside of my green pattern paper. Would have been a lot easier to have done that before I glued on my egg, but oh well. I'm going to play around with these little bunnies until I get them set up where they're just a nice little trio of bunnies. I don't want that purple bunny to extend too far off the card. I can trim that ear off if I want to, but I would like for as much as possible that bunny to show, but still not cover the sentiment, if that makes any sense at all. Once I get those arranged the way I want them, I'll go ahead and glue them together. And then I need to prop up the edges that are going to be hanging off that egg. So I am using some double-sided foam tape, and I didn't realize how thick this egg turned out to be, but I wound up building up my foam tape to almost 5 millimeters. Yikes. I cut another strip of grass, this time using a little bit lighter green, and I dusted up those edges with some Rustic Wilderness ink. And then I just cut that 5.5 inches. I just felt like those bunnies were just kind of like hanging out there and they looked kind of weird. So I thought that just covering up their bottom edges would look a lot better with a little bit more grass. I stamped and cut out one of the sentiments from the Peep Show stamp set, and I'll go ahead and just center that on my little grassy area. With all the fun things going on at the bottom of my card, then I felt like the top of my card was a little bit bare. So I used the Easter basket add-on and I cut out a bow with some pattern paper, and then I just kind of dusted up those edges with Mermaid Lagoon Distress Oxide ink. Now that I've got the bow at the top of my card, I went back down to the bottom of the card and felt like it still needed a little bit of something. So in the Easter basket add-on, there is a really teeny egg. So I cut 6 of those out of white cardstock, and then I just used a Copic marker to go around those edges just to kind of help give it a rounded look. And I'm going to go ahead and just place those in that grass next to the bunnies on both sides. I'm going to add a little bit of bling to the top and sides of my cards, and I'm going to be using the Pickup Stick tool again, only this time I'm using the waxy side, and I am using sparkle spots, and the colors I used are watermelon, ultramarine, and you can't really tell too much, but I also used the white ones. And moving on to the inside of my card, I cut a piece of pink cardstock, 5.5 by 11. I scored it at 5.5, and I folded it so that it made the 5.5 by 5.5 card base. For the inside sentiment on my card, I have a piece of white cardstock that is cut at 4.25 by 4.25. I used the Simply Sentimental-Easter stamp set to stamp out my sentiment. I'll go ahead and get that centered and adhered to the inside of my card, and then I'm going to grab that little lavender bunny that I kind of goofed up on, and I'm just going to go ahead and stick her right next to my sentiment also. All that I have left to do to finish this card is just attach the card front to my card base, and this card is all done. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Make sure to watch all the videos in this hop by clicking on the playlist below. If you want to enter for a chance to win that $25 shopping spree, just fill out that form below and help us celebrate the new release. Hop on over to the Trinity shop to fill up your Easter basket. Thanks again, and bye-bye.